What up, guys? It's that Sly Guy here with my partner in crime, the one, the only, the legend, Malnoxx, with your Taking Back Monday, the Positivity Podcast, because that's what we're all about. So before we dive too deep into tonight's subject, a couple of reminders that we need to say. First, we talk about deep stuff on this podcast because positivity isn't about trying to fake it. It's about going through hard times in life and realizing where your focus can be outside of what's holding you down. So with that, we talk about some deep shit. We don't shy away from talking about deep shit. Uh, Remember though, as always, we are not doctors. Uh,
Hashtag not a doctor.
Hashtag not a doctor. So with that, um, if you feel like you need medical attention, go get medical attention. We cannot help you in that way. We can only start the conversation.
Exactly.
Also, remember that this conversation is heavily opinionated a lot of times, and this conversation could get into belief systems and political systems. That's not to say that because I think one way or Malnoxx thinks one way, we don't love everybody. We don't love you. The reason we're doing this is because we love you and we love everybody. We want to push positivity on the platform we have. And then lastly, make sure you follow Malnoxx and myself anywhere and everywhere. That way we can keep this conversation going and not just be a Monday conversation, but an everyday conversation. So with that, Malnoxx, where can they find you to follow you?
Guys, you can find me everywhere that there is to follow someone on the internet. Well, I'm not going to say everywhere, but like most places. Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook. Here on Twitch, Malnoxx. On Twitter, Malnoxx TV. Someone else has that tag, Malnoxx. Hashtag release the tag.
And for me, guys, it's that Sly Guy everywhere. Literally anywhere that I'm on that you could find me, it'll be it's that Sly Guy, because I make sure I get my name. I just make sure I get my name.
And guys, while the topic that we cover, it changes every week. It's an evolving conversation. Right now we're talking about the 5 pillars of emotional intelligence, and we have a lot of plans for things and where we're going to move after this. So the topic changed because the one thing that never changes is that you can go over to It's That Sly Guy on Twitch, twitch.tv/It's That Sly Guy. You can sub to him for free with your Amazon Prime subscription. Guys, that never changes.
Guys, although you could do that, but today, whatever day you're listening to it doesn't matter, because today, whatever day you're listening to it, is Malnoxx's birthday. So you should really use that Twitch Prime sub to jump into the dojo.
Oh my goodness, this man just with such he's such a generous man. Can we get 3 gifted subs in It's That Sly Guy's chat right now for this generosity?
I mean, it's that. By the way, if you're wondering, It's That Sly Guy is spelled Malnoxx. I know that sounds like Malnoxx, but that's actually how you spell it. It's That Sly Guy.
So weird. So all right. Enough gassing each other up. We're gonna get big heads over here. Today, guys.
Mine's already big.
So last week, just to recap, guys, if you missed any of this, head on over to YouTube. It's up on my channel. It's up on your channel as well, Sly. Yeah, it'll be up on Sly's channel. Don't worry.
It'll be up on mine.
By the time you hear this, it'll be up on his channel. Don't worry. So it's up on both our channels. Malnoxx on YouTube. It's a Sly Guy on YouTube. You guys can catch the previous episodes. We're talking about our 5 pillars of emotional intelligence. We started this conversation by talking about motivation. We talked about what motivates people, how people stay motivated. And we moved into talking about self-control and self-regulation, and why that's so important to emotional intelligence, kind of how that ties into our day-to-day life. And then last week, we talked about self-awareness. We talked about why it's important to be physically and emotionally self-aware, and how being more aware and how knowing yourself is going to help you to better communicate with other people, and how knowing yourself is going to help you to know how you in turn react to certain situations and can be better prepared for those situations. So we talked about, personality tests. Sly came out big with the with his the book that he had. That was another test about the strengths that you have, about your strengths. That right there, that's right, strength-based leadership. So he came out with that. We talked a little bit about that. And today we're going to talk about our fourth pillar of emotional intelligence, guys, and that is empathy. So we're going to be talking about empathy today. Now, to get us started off, Sly, can you tell us what empathy is? What does that word even mean?
So I'm gonna break it down real basic, okay? As low as we can go. Empathy is the ability to take on another's emotions. At the truest, most basic form, that's what empathy is. So Malnoxx is having a bad day. It's really getting to him. I can come in and I can use that ability to relate with him and take on his emotions. Now, it goes deep. As everything in life, the basic area is not necessarily where it stays.
Mm-hmm.
And for empathy, I mean, it can go as far as, I'm literally, because of the connection to another person, I'm literally feeling depressed because they're depressed. I'm literally spiraling myself into a dark place because they are in a dark place currently.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it can go very deep, but it can also be a great tool, right? So, like, it is a double-edged sword of sorts. And this happens to be my favorite of the 5 pillars just because it is one of my biggest strengths on the Strength Finder test that we talked about as well. Like, this is one of my biggest strengths. So, but it's that it's the old adage of before you judge someone, walk a mile in their shoes.
Yep.
That's the basic runs of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's that ability to put yourself in someone's shoes, right? To put them in that situation, like you said, to feel feel what they're going through. And even if it doesn't, even if you don't take it as far as like to feel what they're going through, to at least understand what they're going through, and to be able to look at it from their point of view and from their perspective, and understand why they're reacting to a situation in a certain way.
I'll go even deeper. I don't think to be empathetic, you have to understand how someone's feeling,
mm-hmm.
or even why they're feeling it. But I would argue empathy on a very, surface level of empathy is going, I don't get it, but your feelings have value. What you're feeling right now has value. So I don't get it, but I'm not gonna dismiss it.
I like that. Yeah, I would agree with that. Making people feel heard and making people feel, like you said, feel valued, feel like their emotions are real. Their emotions are heard, their emotions are respected, their emotions are seen, how they're feeling is seen, and it's not dismissed. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
But with that, what do you think? What do you think empathy brings to the conversation? Because this is a continuing conversation, right?
It is.
We're driving. It's hard to talk about the others without. It's hard to talk about one individually without talking about the others. What do you think empathy stands in these 5 pillars?
So I think, like when we talked about, self-awareness, and how when we know how we react to certain situations can help us understand how other people are going to react to situations, or not even that. I think empathy helps us understand how other people react to situations. I think the self-awareness is understanding that other people will react to situations different than you do. Like being self-aware is like, this is how I react to it, but I know other people aren't necessarily going to react to it in the same way. Whereas empathy, I think, is the understanding of the way that they're reacting, or like you said, the acceptance of the way they're reacting. Someone reacts in a way that's way different from you, and you have the awareness to know that not everyone's going to react the same as you. You have the empathy to make sure that person knows that it's okay to react in that way and that their emotion is valued in that way. And then also to be, kind of tying some other ones in here as well, to be able to help them maybe work through whatever emotion they have, or to be, compassionate towards them and to help them in, if someone is, reacting in a way that has, no self-awareness or self-control, you're not going to, belittle them and call them out on that. You're going to, help, try to help them work through it if they want help. And that's another thing with self-awareness, is being aware enough to know when you just need to shut up and when someone doesn't want you to help them. Like, and or with empathy too, I think.
Can't.
Yeah. And with empathy too, I think it's important to be able to read someone's emotion in the sense of they're upset, you can empathize with them. But maybe they don't want you to help. Maybe they don't want anyone to help right now. Maybe, they, you can empathize with someone without like making a scene or like making a big deal out of, what they're feeling. Which I think like a lot of times when people are feeling down or people are sad or people are depressed and stuff, and when people are trying to empathize with them, it almost like makes it worse because the person is like hyper focusing on that emotion that person is feeling. And that's not the only, like when you're sad, you don't just feel sad, you feel other things as well. But if you're hyper focusing on like, oh, you're sad, or oh, you're mad, or oh, you're depressed or whatever, hyper focusing on that, I think, is almost detrimental to, having a conversation. I think it's much more beneficial to, try to have a conversation about it and try to, go through, like we were talking about, having, why you're feeling this way. And that doesn't always work. I mean, sometimes people have feelings that are irrational and they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to work through it. But, again, being able to read someone's emotion and know when the right time is to react, or to because there's levels of empathy, there's like, it's not all linear.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue that, sometimes the best way to be empathetic is to do nothing but listen.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there are problems that we need help fixing. There are problems that we have that we need, somebody to step in and give advice. And there are problems that we have that we just need a friend to go get a tub of ice cream with us and sit on the couch and listen to us, cry with us, be part of that moment.
Yeah, I want ice cream now.
You want ice cream now? Yeah. The other thing is, like, we've given kind of the, we gave the car analogies and different things throughout. For this one, as I was kind of like thinking through it, it wasn't a car. I actually thought of Double Buck, a submarine. Right? And empathy is this radar that's constantly going off around us and just kind of pinging different things in the area. And it's it's those little pings that we pick up on that we have to step into. And, perfect example. We have friends that we can rag on with each other, right?
Yes.
We can tease.
Yes. Well, debatable that we have friends, but
yeah, it's super debatable. But we have acquaintances that we can tease and that tease us.
Yes.
Now, there's a line, right? Of we talked about this not long ago. With there's a line that when you're teasing somebody, that they hit a wall where they just can't take it anymore, and you, as another human being in society, have to be able to pick up on that and knock it out.
Yep.
Even if it's not you teasing, you have to be able to knock it out, because like that playful banter turns to bullying real quick.
Yes.
Right? So like it's not even that that's always how they react, but something is triggering that reaction, right? So like I tease you all the time. You tease me all the time. 9 times out of 10, everything's great.
Yeah.
1 time out of 10, you had a hard day at work. You came back, you were dealing with bratty kids all day, and now your computer won't work. And we were supposed to play this game, but we can't play that game because your computer is lagging on it. And I come up and I say something that I would say any other day of the week, and you would just let it roll off your back.
Yeah.
And you are, you're thrown off.
Exactly.
You go off the deep. Like, empathy is that radar of knowing when it is and when it's not okay, knowing what's going on around you, being able, it's kind of that sixth sense that we all have of being able to step into a situation and go, oh, something's different, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And being able to step in and have that conversation.
100%. Yeah. Being able to pick up on those little cues to know, like, this is or this isn't okay to say or to do or to talk about right now. Yeah, 100%. 100%. And, like you were saying, to know, to not just always assume that just because it's something that you said to someone in the past and something that you say to someone regularly, that it's always going to be okay. To be able to, quote unquote, read the room and, understand the vibe, for lack of a better word, to understand, like, oh, this joke that I made, 100 times in the past, probably not the best time to make this joke right now. Based on how, this person is obviously feeling, or how it seems this person is feeling.
I think it's even bigger on the back end of, oh, I made it the 101st time, and that time it hit. The bigger side of it is, like, we've talked about empathy. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes, right? Read the room, read body language, understand tone of voice, that sort of stuff. But once once something's happened and people are in their emotions at that point already, like, that's the moment where you have to step in and be like, okay, your emotions are valid. Like, I may not understand where they're coming from, why they're here, but your emotions are valid.
Yes.
Right? Like, we have to always respond to feeling.
Yep.
Because, I say it all the time to people that, like, you may be the best human being. I say it to people who I know who are in the limelight, right? Or some sort of public figure. Like, you can be the best human being behind closed doors when you get home. You can be the best human being 99% of the time. But that one time that you mess up out in public, perception is reality. And if you don't validate the fact that perception is reality, if you combat that, like, you're going to have that as the reality of what people think about you.
Yes.
Now, if you understand the fact that perception is reality and you step into that moment and say, hey, guys, like, y'all's feelings are justified because of how I handled this, or this happened and y'all feel this way, and that's justified. But, like, here's what was happening with me, and get to explain that moment. Now you've shifted the perception, right? So the idea that feelings are always justified. Feelings are never wrong.
Yeah.
Never. Now, I could feel like Mal was a huge jerk because of the way he interacted with me. And Mal may not have been a huge jerk. Mal may have just said something that caught me off guard and irritated me. But the reality of the matter is, my feelings are not wrong in that situation.
Yep.
Period. Right? And that's where the emotional intelligence and empathy have to step in.
And I think that's where a lot of people get in trouble too, when they go to apologize for something that they've done. Is, people have a tendency to say, like, I'm sorry that you feel that way or something. And we're saying, like, I'm sorry you feel that way. That automatically is almost like saying, like, well, I'm like, that's not really how it is, but I'm sorry that that's how you took it, type thing. Like, I'm sorry that's how you feel now. Like, don't be sorry that, they feel that way. You can apologize that what you did made them feel that way. Like, I'm sorry that what I said made you feel this way, because then you're validating that you are feeling this way, and that's how you're feeling. I'm sorry that what I said, what I did, caused that reaction in you. Not I'm sorry you're feeling that.
Yeah. And I mean, and then you step out of that and into this conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of like, can we now have a conversation that I've validated your feelings, right? And we can get to the root of what's causing that.
Yeah.
Because like the truth is, that it doesn't matter what the what the feeling is.
Yeah.
Like, it's a real feeling, therefore it's justified. But what matters is why they're feeling that. What was the root cause of that?
Yes.
Right? Because it's probably not even what you said. Like, in all honesty.
Yeah. No, definitely not. I mean, it might be. It might be. What you said. It could be the way you said it, or it might also just be, the straw that broke the camel's back. It might be. It might just be that what you were doing and what you were doing, what you were saying there.
Yeah.
It built upon what else was going on with that person during the day, and that's just the one that stopped it.
Yeah.
So
how does this play into the other ones that we've talked about?
So before we get into that, I do want to do one more. I want to talk about one more part of empathy before we talk about how it ties in a little bit. And that is that, and we've kind of touched on it already. And that is that there is there are different kinds of empathy, right? So there's different, not only different levels, because I know we talked about kind of like empathy is not linear, but there are different types of empathy, right? So there is, and this is something I had in my notes here. We have cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy being the ability to take someone else's perspective in something. Which, when you think of cognitive empathy, a lot of examples that came up when I was, looking some stuff up for this were like negotiation. When you're negotiating with someone, it's important to be able to empathize with that person and put yourself in their shoes so you understand where they're coming from when they're negotiating. And then, motivating people. It's important to be able to put yourself in someone's shoes so you know how best to motivate them. Like when I'm at work, if I'm trying to motivate a student, or if I'm at the gym and I'm trying to motivate someone that I'm training with, it's important to be able to see things from their perspective, to know what to do or what to say to motivate, and also know what to do and what to say, or what to not say, what to not do, in order to motivate them. And I think it's important to have that kind of an empathy, that kind of cognitive empathy, even when you're in a job, to be able to, especially if you're like in a management position, you have people underneath you, to be able to take their perspective when they come to you with problems, is gonna make it so you get the best word possible out of them, because they feel like you understand them. And so I think that is, what's important about the cognitive empathy. And then that also, but they all tie together. And so cognitive empathy, then a step from that, we have emotional empathy, which is, a lot of what we've been talking about here. And that is, that feeling of, or that ability to feel someone else's emotions, almost like they're contagious, right? Someone is happy, we're happy as well. Someone is sad, we're sad as well, like you were saying. And to have that that emotional empathy leads to a lot of what kind of we've been talking about right now. And again, things that came up with this, in personal relationships, it's important to have emotional empathy, whether that be with a friend or whether that be with a lover, to be able to put yourself in their shoes emotionally or feel the things they're feeling emotionally. Even to people like, doctors, it's important for doctors to have bedside manner. So it's important for them to be able to empathize with their patients emotionally and kind of, put themselves in their shoes, feel what they're feeling. And even in sales, because people buy based on emotion. And so if you are able to, feel that person's emotion, and by feeling their emotion, help to build that emotion, that's going to produce, better results in your job as well.
I'm gonna about 50% of people buy based on emotion, right? The ones like me that say I feel like this, I feel like that.
Yeah, the I feels, not the I thinks.
Not the I thinks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Cognitive empathy versus emotional empathy is a real. I mean, we were kind of talking about both of them, but yeah.
Yeah, and then there's one more as well, and that last one is and this is kind of like emotional empathy, and this is just the last one I found in my notes here when I was going through, and that was compassionate empathy. But that's like concern, right? Like you're compassionate, but like it's the you feel for them, you understand why so you have the cognitive empathy of putting yourself in their shoes, and you understand why they're feeling that way. You have the emotional empathy to feel what they're feeling, and then you have the compassionate empathy where you have the urge or the compulsion to help them, where you don't only like I can sit here and be like, oh yeah, like I feel that, like I understand why you're feeling that way. That sucks. Like I feel very sorry for you right here. I feel sad for with you, but then to have that step further of like having that drive to want to help them if it's wanted, if it's needed, I think is kind of that like next like deeper step into it. So those are the three kinds of empathy that I found while I was going through everything. How do you feel about those?
Yeah, I mean, I think realistically, it's just the manner of, like they're not really different empathies. It's just the manner of which they're portrayed, right? Like it all comes from the same root of like, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Right. But like, I think it's important as we go into talking about how they work together, right? Like with the other pillars, like I think, and this is where I've lacked a lot growing up, and as I stepped into some of the roles that I did, leadership roles that I did, I learned and grew in this way. But empathy without self-awareness can be a very dangerous thing.
Yes, 100%.
Because
100%
of the fact that like I'm super empathetic, right? That means when you're down, I'm down with you.
Yes.
When you're up, I'm up with you. But sometimes the empathetic person goes above and beyond your high, right?
Yes.
If your high is 100%, I'm at 110.
Yes.
The opposite is also true. If your low is 0, I'm at -10.
Yes.
Right. And with that, like it takes self-awareness to be able to step in and say, like, you were talking about that cognitive empathy, the wanting to help, right? The longing to help someone, right? It takes self-awareness to be able to step in there and say, like, dude, I really want to help you right now, but physically I cannot, because there is a good chance that I drop even lower than where you're at right now. And by the time you're good and going again, and you've raised back up and you're at a good place, I'm still down in the pits. Like, and it takes self-awareness to be able to step away from that and say, hold on, like, I want to help you, but I can't. I need to help you by finding somebody who's better equipped to help you right now.
Yeah,
right?
and
yeah, and I think like self-awareness and empathy, like, I mean, if you don't have self-awareness inside of your empathy, it can be a huge downfall. But also, like, empathy is, I think, one of the greatest strengths any person can have,
I agree
right?
with that 100%.
Me and you, I think it was me and you that talked about Gary V,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, the idea of an alpha male is not actually this, uh, I'm alpha, I'm big, I'm strong. It's the idea that an alpha male should possess the empathy, love, respect, right? Like, these qualities that we look at as feminine a lot of times in our culture should actually be depicted in an alpha male,
Oh yes,
because
110%.
these qualities aren't feminine or masculine, they're human, right? And an alpha male should be a good leader, and to be a good leader you have to possess these qualities.
You have to be empathetic, and that's like you have to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes to effectively lead and to have people want to follow you. You know, if you're not an empathetic person, if you can't motivate someone, if you can't drive someone to be better, if you can't drive someone to give you their best, you're not going to be successful as a leader. Because if you have people under you, whether that be in a professional circumstance or otherwise, if you have people that are following you, that are looking up to you, but you can't pull out of them every ounce of effort, every ounce of every ounce of potential that they have, then not only are you not going to succeed, but they're not going to succeed. And so you're not only doing yourself a disservice by lacking this empathy and lacking these pillars of emotional intelligence, you're doing everyone around you a disservice as well. You are not the person that these people need to be around, because you are not going to help these people to achieve their potential. And I have a lot more I want to talk about on that, but I'm going to save it for when we talk about how we tie them all together. But I want to put a pin in that. I want to come back to that, because it's so important.
Also, I want to make this really, I don't think I said this well earlier, and I want to drive home the point of, if you're super empathetic, there is a downside to that.
Yes.
Of that ability to drop lower than the person you're helping and not be able to climb your way out of it once they're out.
Yep.
But don't look at empathy as a negative trait, and don't look at those situations as I can't help you.
Yeah.
Right? It's important to realize the difference in those, right? Like, the self-aware empath, if you will, looks at a situation and says, I can't help you the way I want to, so let me help you the way I can.
Yes.
Right? So the way I can help you is get somebody who can help you better, right?
Yes.
Like, I can come in and get somebody who can handle themselves, or I can, set boundaries of how this interaction is going to work, because that's hugely important to distinguish the difference between the two. And I don't know if I said that well before, of like, it, just because it's a dark side of empathy, and trust me, like, I've gone through it, I've been there, it doesn't mean empathy is an entirely bad thing or can be a bad thing. It means the empath has to have more self-awareness.
Yeah.
In that.
And empathy without self-awareness, like you were saying, it's dangerous, because like you said, you can go higher than their highs, lower than their lows, and when they're going through something, there's a lot more than just the emotion that's going on. So if they feel really down, they have obviously more of a connection to whatever caused them to feel like that, and so they can work through it themselves, and they can get over it, and they can get past it. But if you are really down for them, and you're really down about something that happened, you don't always have that same ability to work through that emotion the way that they can.
Well, that's an important key, is like, they have something that they can work through.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have that something that you can work through.
Exactly. You just have their emotion that you're feeding.
You just have their emotion that you're you're feeding off of.
Mhm.
You don't have the act dictated their emotion.
Yep.
Right? So they get to work on the act. They get help working through whatever the act was. Your emotion or their emotion dictated your emotion. Well, there's nothing to work through
Can't work through their
there.
emotion.
You can't work through their emotion, right? Their emotion uh, is just something that you kind of. It's almost like a leech, right? Like
Mhm.
you're pulling that emotion out of them, almost like in the means of helping them. Sometimes, like
Mhm.
you're pulling that emotion out of them to where like they're better, right? The doctors used to use leeches to treat diseases and stuff, right? The
Yep.
leech, they'd put the leech on, the leech would suck out all the bad, and then the person would be better.
Mhm.
Like it's almost like sometimes being an empathetic person can drive that kind of scenario where like you've helped pull the bad out, but now you're sitting in the bad and that person is way better.
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
You help with that, and then you're left with this bad, and you don't always know how to work through it. And you have to have that self-awareness, that extra self-awareness to understand that you can empathize with this person, but not to get so caught up in their emotions that you let their emotion completely overtake your own emotion. You can be empathetic with them, and you can help them. You can want to help them, but you have to know how deep you can go as a person and still be able to walk away and kind of be okay and not get burned out, or to let it overtake you.
So Kearless, I really like what you just said in Malnox's chat. So I want to hit on it real quick. For those of y'all who haven't watched from the beginning of the first episode, I was a resident in training for a large church in my area, and my job was with college ministry. So my job was hanging out with college students as a pastor-esque associate pastor type of role, right? 100% the empathetic person has to know their limits and know when to pull themselves out. That's where the self-awareness that we talked about a couple weeks ago comes in, right? So there's this idea that as we dive in, we can, you dive into a pool of water, you drown if you go too deep and can't swim back up.
Yes.
So when you go to save someone, right, in life, like in lifeguard training, they always teach you to work with a team if it's too hard of a rescue, do that sort of stuff. There were plenty of times that I'm on the college campus that I was working on, and I would have to I'd have to, hey guys, like my cell phone's going off this weekend.
Yeah.
Like I just need to step away from all of this for the weekend. And that was my way of knowing how far I could go and not letting myself drown.
Yeah.
And those weekends that I did that, here's the other important thing. As it goes, you can't help someone if you're drained and empty.
Yep. Can't help someone else if you can't help yourself.
So I wouldn't even say help yourself. It takes having other people pouring into you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
It takes having other people help you.
Yes.
So like for me, like as I hit those situations, like I went into weekly therapy. Not because I was really struggling with a lot personally at the time, but because that was a moment during the week where it was just, I was able to let everything out and be filled up with just knowledge and positivity and, I still to this day recommend that if people haven't done therapy, like don't look at it as a negative. Like it is a huge positive, even if you think your life is put together.
Oh yeah, it's always going to be beneficial to have someone to talk to about things that you either don't feel comfortable talking to about everyone. I mean, there's very deeply personal things that some people feel better talking to a stranger about rather than someone that they have, like, than a loved one that they feel like might judge them for it or something like that. It's always gonna be bad, and that it's confidential. That the things you say to this person aren't gonna go anywhere. That gives you kind of like a freeing feeling to be able to pour out to them, and like you said, get filled back up with
Yep.
Whether that's being filled up with like you said, knowledge, being filled up with positivity, positive reinforcement, things that you can do to work on a particular issue that you might have, being filled up with ideas of how to move forward, because sometimes we have all these things, we have so many things, we don't know what to do first, we don't know how to prioritize what we're feeling, and we don't know where to go with the feelings that we're having. And so having that person to talk to can be really helpful, just to give you kind of a more clear idea of like what you should be looking at going forward. And
one of the best things that I did on those weekends that I needed to step away and get away, I had a family friends that I had two friends that were sisters, and they were both like they both were so deeply connected with me that they were like my sisters,
mm-hmm.
and their parents basically adopted me. So like on those weekends, I would go to their house, and Mal, you're gonna love this because me and you have a very similar backstory. I would go to their house,
mm-hmm.
and we would spend 24 hours, whatever we had that weekend, doing a musical marathon.
Yes.
We'd watch Singing in the Rain, we'd watch Rent, we'd just chill on the couch and give ourselves time to just kind of unload everything. So it's important to know, also what is your thing. For me, I grew up, I played sports, and I did musical theater and choir, right? So for me, when I'm needing to step away from those moments, I do sports, I watch musicals, and I turn music up to the top of the loudest the stereo will go, and I sing and dance around the house.
Yeah,
those are my things, right? It is not uncommon for me to be caught outside at 2 a.m. shooting basketball by myself, just shooting, not trying to work on anything, not doing anything, just shooting, because it's a therapeutic way to just clear your mind and your emotions. Yeah. A little bit of a side tangent, but I think very important to talk about when we're talking about empathy.
Oh no, 100%. And again, a lot of this stuff that we're talking about now, I think, is going to come to fruition in 2 weeks when we talk when we move forward and talk about kind of how it all fits together. But I guess closing remarks on empathy.
It's my biggest closing remark on empathy is be self-aware. Be aware. Just because it is such a positive gift that you have to be able to truly step into someone's shoes, but it can lead to so much hurt in your life if you don't maintain that awareness.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could say it better myself. I mean, I think that was very well put, and I'm really looking forward to taking what we've already covered now and combining it with everything else, because I think that each of these individual pieces that we've been talking about so far are so important on their own, but they become so much more when you talk about them as a whole. They become so much more important. They become so much more.
Oh yeah, when you combine them, there's just, you know.
I mean, that's what we've been talking about. You know, it creates that idea of emotional intelligence, which each of these pieces, these 5 pillars, are what holds that emotional intelligence up. But what sits on top is that idea of emotional intelligence. And so being able to do that, I think is amazing.
And I think just because this is such a real subject, like, I know between mine and your conversations, I mean, how long have we known each other now? Over 2 years?
Yeah, next month I will have been streaming on I've been streaming for about 3 years. Next month is, I think, my 3-year affiliate anniversary, but you know, between whatever platforms. I've known you since right before I moved to Mixer. So I've known you for like over 2.5 years.
Yeah. So, like, I think like, we get a lot of, like, the last couple of weeks we've gotten a lot of the comments of, like, this is truly like like just now Ocean said, like, the conversations we're having is magical, like, stuff like that. But I think, like, both of us come into this conversation from such a real place, and even content creating from such a real place of, like, the positivity is not it's non-negotiable, right?
Yes.
Like, I came into content creating because I had a student, you know, take their own life, and, like, I realized that sometimes you just can't talk to people that you know. So I wanted to create a place where people, you know, can feel comfortable coming out and saying stuff like, you know, I broke down and started therapy for the first time. And have those conversations and feel like they're cared about. And you didn't have the same exact process of coming into content creation, but when you started content creation, that was the same kind of focus, right? Like, you, what is the Korean?
Kunja. Kunja. The idea of every day trying to be a little bit more perfect, even though we know perfection is impossible. We're never going to be perfect, but every day we can try to be better than we were the day before. We can be one step closer to that perfect ideal, and it's about the process of trying every day to be better, physically, emotionally, mentally, in relationships, whatever. It's about the process of waking up every day with the intent that you are going to be closer to that perfect. You're going to strive for perfection today, even though you know that it never ends. Every day you wake up, you will strive for perfection. You will strive for perfection. You will make mistakes, and that's okay. You will learn from those mistakes, but you will strive for perfection. And in doing so, will, you know, improve yourself and improve the lives of those around you every day.
Yeah. So, with that, chat, I'm gonna stay on just chatting for a little bit, and just kind of chill with chat. Mal is, I think, going to do some other stuff, but before we leave the YouTube world and the podcast world, we gotta say something. And, you know, I love you guys. Correction. We love you guys. Don't forget to love each other and be characters that make an impact on the world you're living in, because
the sun will rise and we will try again.